You're sitting there on Tuesday morning, feeling good about UFC 324. You've got your main event locked down, your co-main is solid, the whole card looks like money. Then your phone rings. Dana, we got a problem. That's how it always starts. Never good news. Never someone calling to tell you the card just got better. It's always a problem, and problems in this business mean one thing. Someone's hurt, someone's out, and you've got 48 hours to save a pay-per-view that took months to build. I've been doing this for over 2 decades, and I still get that sick feeling in my stomach when I see certain numbers pop up on my phone. You know it's coming before you even answer. The manager's voice, trying to sound apologetic, but really just covering his ass. The fighter who swears he can push through it, but the doctors won't clear him. The whole house of cards that you've spent weeks building, crashing down because someone tweaked something in training. People think this job is about making fights. That's the easy part. The hard part is keeping them together. UFC 324 was supposed to be different. We had everything mapped out weeks in advance. No last-minute changes, no drama, just a clean card that made sense from top to bottom. But this business doesn't care about your plans. This business eats your plans for breakfast and asks for seconds. The first call came from a camp in Vegas. Top 10 guy, been with us for years, never missed weight, never missed a fight. Professional as they come. Except now he's got a torn meniscus and his knee looks like a basketball. His manager wants to know if we can push the fight back 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Like I'm running a weekend amateur tournament. Look, I tell him, I get it. Your guy's hurt. But we've got pay-per-view dates. We've got arenas booked. We've got broadcast partnerships that don't move because someone's knee is sore. You either fight or you don't fight. That's the reality nobody wants to hear. When you're building these cards, especially the big ones, everything is connected. You pull one fight, and 3 others might fall apart. The co-main event guys might not want to step up if the money's not right. The prelim fighters might lose their spots if we need to move someone down. It's like playing Jenga with $1 million tower. The second call came 2 hours later. Different camp, same story. Training injury. Nothing major, just needs a couple weeks to heal up. These guys live in a fantasy world where they think I can just wave a magic wand and make new dates appear. What don't you understand about this? I'm talking to the manager, trying not to lose it completely. This isn't your local gym booking fights for whenever it's convenient. This is the UFC. When we say December 16th, we mean December 16th. But here's what really gets me. Half these injuries aren't even real injuries. They're excuses. Guy's been training for 8 weeks, realizes he's not where he needs to be, and suddenly his shoulder's bothering him. Or his back's tight. Or he's got some mysterious illness that conveniently shows up right when the medicals are due. I've seen every trick in the book. The fake injury reports. The doctors who'll write whatever the fighter wants to hear. The managers who think they can play games with fight dates like we're running some small-time promotion. You want to know how many fights I've had fall through in the last 6 months? More than I want to count. And it's not just the unknowns. It's main event guys. It's title fights. It's the fights that people actually care about. UFC 325 is already looking like a disaster, and we're still 2 months out. 3 different main event options have already fallen through. Not because of anything we did wrong, but because fighters can't stay healthy long enough to make it to the octagon. The training camps these days are brutal. Guys are going to war in the gym, throwing everything they've got at each other like it's the actual fight. Then they show up broken and want sympathy. I don't have sympathy for stupid. You know what your problem is? I told one of these managers last week, your guy trains like it's 2005. This isn't Pride, where you could show up half-ready and hope for the best. This is the UFC. If you're not professional enough to make it to fight night in one piece, maybe this isn't the right business for you. That didn't go over well, but I don't care if it goes over well. I care about putting on fights that people want to see. The nightmare scenario is when your main event falls through and you don't have a backup plan. That's when you start making desperate phone calls, trying to convince guys to take fights on 2 weeks' notice. That's when you start offering money you shouldn't be offering just to keep a card together. But the fighters know they've got you over a barrel. They know you need them more than they need you in that moment. So the price goes up. The demands get bigger. Suddenly, everyone wants first-class flights and hotel suites and guarantees that they'll get the next title shot if they save your card. It's blackmail, basically. But it's the kind of blackmail you have to live with if you want to stay in business. The worst part is dealing with the fans. They don't understand how complicated this is. They just see that the fight they wanted to watch isn't happening anymore. and they want someone to blame. Usually that someone is me. Why didn't you have a backup plan? They ask. Why didn't you see this coming? Like I'm supposed to be psychic. Like I'm supposed to know which fighters are going to get hurt in training and when. I've got backup plans for my backup plans. But sometimes the dominoes just keep falling until there's nothing left to work with. The media's even worse. They act like every last-minute change is some kind of failure on our part. Like we're not doing everything we can to put together the best cards possible. They want controversy. They want drama. They want someone to point fingers at. Dana White's UFC in chaos again, they write. Another main event falls through. Like it's my fault that a fighter got hurt in training. But here's what they don't see. The fights that we do save. The cards that come together despite everything going wrong. The times when we take a disaster and turn it into something even better than what we had planned. Sometimes the best fights happen when you're forced to get creative. When your original plan falls apart and you have to scramble to put something together. Those are the fights that remind you why you love this business in the first place. The thing is, every card is a gamble. You're betting that 8 to 12 fighters can make it through their training camps without getting seriously hurt. You're betting that none of them will have personal emergencies or visa problems or contract disputes. You're betting that the stars will align just right for one night in December. Most of the time, it works out. The fighters show up, they make weight, they put on a show. But the times when it doesn't work out, those are the times that test everything you've built. People ask me if I ever think about slowing down, about making smaller cards that are easier to manage. The answer is no. This isn't a business where you play it safe. This is a business where you swing for the fences every single time, knowing that sometimes you're going to strike out. UFC 324 will happen. Maybe not with the exact lineup we planned. Maybe not with all the fights we wanted, but it'll happen. Because at the end of the day, that's what we do. We figure it out. We make it work. We put on a show. And UFC 325? That's going to be even bigger. Because for every fight that falls through, for every card that gets reshuffled, we learn something. We get better. We find new ways to make this chaos work in our favor. The fighters who can't handle the pressure, who can't stay healthy, who can't make it to fight night, they get left behind. The ones who can, the ones who show up ready to fight no matter what, those are the fighters who become stars. That's the reality of this business. Nothing is guaranteed until you're standing in the octagon with the cage door locked behind you. Everything else is just planning and hoping and crossing your fingers that the phone doesn't ring with bad news. But when it all comes together, when the card delivers and the fights live up to the hype, there's nothing like it in the world. That's what keeps me going through all the last-minute changes and emergency phone calls and sleepless nights wondering if we're going to have a main event. The show must go on. It always goes on. Even when it seems impossible, even when everything's falling apart, somehow we make it work. Because that's what separates the UFC from everyone else. We don't make excuses, we make fights happen. The third call came on Wednesday. This one was different. This wasn't some manager making excuses or some fighter trying to buy time. This was our matchmaker telling me we had a real problem. The co-main just fell through, he says. Medical suspension. Commission won't clear him. Now I'm looking at a card that's missing 2 fights from the main portion, and we're less than 10 days out. The venue's locked in. The broadcast is locked in. The marketing campaign has been running for weeks. And I'm supposed to magically pull replacements out of thin air. This is where people don't understand the business side of what we do. It's not just about finding 2 guys who want to fight each other. It's about finding 2 guys who can make the weight, who are medically cleared, who don't have training camp conflicts, who the commission will approve, and who makes sense for the fans. Plus, there's the money side. The original fighters had contracts for specific amounts. Now you're trying to convince someone to take a fight on short notice, and they want more money because they're saving your card. Fair enough. But the budget was set months ago based on the original lineup. I remember one time, we had a main event fall through 3 days before the event. 3 days. The replacement fight we put together ended up being better than the original, but it cost us an extra $500,000 in fighter pay and production changes. The accountants were not happy. But here's what the media never talks about. The times when these last-minute changes actually work out better than what we had planned. Sometimes you get forced into making a fight that you never would have thought of, and it ends up being incredible. UFC 325 is the perfect example. We originally had 3 different main event scenarios planned out. None of them worked. The first guy got hurt in training. The second guy had visa issues. The third guy's opponent failed a medical. So we ended up with a completely different main event, one that nobody saw coming. And you know what? It might be the best fight on the card. That's the thing about this business. Sometimes the chaos works in your favor. Sometimes the fighter who steps up on short notice puts on the performance of his life. Sometimes the replacement fight becomes the fight everyone talks about. But you can't plan for that. You can't build a business model around hoping that your backup plans turn out better than your original plans. You have to assume the worst and prepare for it. The conversation I had with our legal team last month was brutal. They wanted to know what our liability is when fights fall through. What do we owe the venues? What do we owe the broadcast partners? What do we owe the fans who already bought tickets? The answer is complicated. We've got insurance for some things, but not everything. We've got contracts that protect us in certain situations, but not all situations. And we've got a reputation to maintain, which means sometimes we eat the cost even when we don't legally have to. I told them, look, we're not in the business of making excuses or pointing fingers when things go wrong. We're in the business of putting on fights. If a fight falls through, we find a better fight. If a card looks weak, we make it stronger. That's what we do. The training camp situation has gotten completely out of control in the last few years. These guys are treating their preparation camps like actual fights. They're going full speed, full contact, 5 days a week for 8 weeks straight. Of course they're getting hurt. I've had conversations with some of the top coaches about this. What are you thinking? I asked them. You're supposed to get your guy ready to fight, not break him before he gets to the octagon. But the coaches have their own pressures. The fighter wants to feel prepared. The fans expect perfection. The media analyzes every mistake. So everyone's training harder than ever, which means more injuries than ever. There's also the mental side of it. Some of these fighters, they get in their own heads as the fight gets closer. They start second-guessing themselves. They start looking for ways out. A minor injury becomes a major problem. A small concern becomes a big excuse. I can usually tell the difference between a real injury and a fighter who's just not ready mentally. The real injuries come with medical reports, x-rays, doctors' opinions. The fake injuries come with vague descriptions and requests for extensions. My back's bothering me, they say, or I tweaked something in training. When I ask for specifics, for medical documentation, suddenly it's all very complicated. The hardest part is dealing with the fighters who are genuinely hurt but want to fight anyway. These are the guys who built their careers on toughness, on never backing down from a challenge. They'll try to convince you they can fight with a torn ACL or a separated shoulder. That's when I have to be the bad guy. No, you can't fight injured. No, we're not going to risk your long-term health for one paycheck. No, this isn't about being tough. This is about being smart. Some of them hate me for it. They think I'm being overprotective or costing them money. But I'd rather have a fighter angry at me than have a fighter end his career because I let him make a stupid decision. The commission doctors are good, but they're not perfect. They see a fighter for 10 minutes and have to make a decision about whether he's fit to compete. Sometimes they miss things. Sometimes they're too cautious. Sometimes they're not cautious enough. I've learned to trust my instincts about these things. If a fighter doesn't look right, doesn't sound right, doesn't seem like himself, I'm not putting him in there. I don't care what the doctors say. I don't care what the fighter says. I don't care what the fans want. The business will survive one canceled fight. It won't survive a serious injury that could have been prevented. UFC 324 ended up being one of our strongest cards of the year, despite all the changes. The fans who showed up got their money's worth. The fighters who competed put on great performances. The broadcast numbers were solid, but it took everything we had to get there. Every favor we were owed, every relationship we'd built, every backup plan we'd made. We used it all. And now we're doing it again with UFC 325. Different problems, same pressure. Different fighters, same deadlines. Different challenges, same expectations. The worst call I ever got was during UFC 200 week. Main event fighter, someone who'd never pulled out of a fight in his entire career, calls me at 2 a.m. Dana, I'm in the hospital. They're saying I might need surgery. I'm sitting in my hotel room in Vegas, looking at a card that was supposed to be the biggest of the year, and suddenly I'm wondering if we're going to have to scramble everything again. That feeling in your stomach when you realize everything you've worked for could disappear, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But you know what happened? We found a replacement. Not just any replacement. We found someone who turned that main event into something special. The fans got what they came for, even if it wasn't what we originally promised them. That's the lesson I've learned after all these years. You can't control the injuries. You can't control the personal problems. You can't control the visa issues or the contract disputes or the 100 other things that can go wrong. What you can control is how you respond. You can panic or you can get to work. You can make excuses or you can make solutions. You can give up or you can find a way to give the fans what they deserve. The fighters who understand this, who show up ready regardless of the circumstances, those are the fighters who become legends. The ones who need perfect conditions, who can't handle adversity, who fold when things get complicated, they don't last in this business. Same goes for everyone else in this organization. The matchmakers who can rebuild a card in 48 hours. The production team that can change everything at the last minute. The marketing people who can pivot when the whole story changes. Those are the people who make the UFC what it is. People ask me how long I want to keep doing this. How many more cards? How many more crises? How many more last-minute phone calls can I handle? The answer is simple, as long as it takes. As long as there are fighters who want to compete and fans who want to watch, we'll figure out how to put on shows. We'll adapt to whatever problems come up. We'll find solutions to whatever challenges we face. That's not just what we do. It's who we are. We don't make excuses. We make fights happen.